Well, hello there, everyone. Here to show you, the paid training, coloring activity right here. As you see right here, talk about paid training, and basically, if this was like a job, description, or if it's anything to do with maybe a meeting, or if it's a group or anything like that, or if it's going to be anything that's related to maybe volunteer type work or something like that. But basically that that maybe not all jobs more like would offer to where that for every person say in the group or at the meeting, that more likely that have it to where that they would get paid like we say like a type of salary. That type of salary could be about maybe an extra $5 or something like that, on a add on to a paycheck or something like that. But in a lot of ways, that knowing about Mike, that maybe not all companies and businesses are doing it to where that if they have you come in and then they have you working just like for practice. I'm sure most of us here have heard of practice makes perfect comment, but they're talking about right here is like that if you want to call it like a comment, or if it's like just kind of a suggestion, or it's like any type of a say good training, it's like advice that type of stuff. But for practice makes perfect, knowing about like the type of practice to where that if you come into work like during the weekend or something like that, and then have it to where that if this was a man and a woman working together, like if that was right there was me, and then right here is with the partner, like that could be like we say an office tenant or somebody like that, man and woman, and let's just say that they were working right here at the desk right here, and then what's right here, this one right here will be example right here of me and knowing about Mike, without the facial hair, huh? But I might go ahead and draw a little bit of facial hair and about right there. But you see right here is that I went and drew the way I drew these was as like if this was right here was me, and if I were to be sitting at a desk right here, instead of taking phone calls and stuff like that, and if it was working for like an insurance company, the lady would be at about right here, and then I would be at about right here. Or could be like any gentleman that they would be working in an office area. And just thinking about, I'm like, the type of training that more likely that they would pay the staff or employees a fair wage, and knowing about, I'm like, that for most of the time that I'm sure that they say that for anybody who's maybe just starting a job, that they probably say that they're not quite used to everything yet. They're not quite used to the equipment, and as well as for whatever that they got to use, if it's going to be maybe the headsets. And I could say, I'm like, that whenever you first get started on a job, a lot of times it may be some that may have that nervousness to where if they're going to be using a headset, you got a headset, wear the headset, and then from there, and then that maybe just work the mouse. If you were to work the mouse, you say on the system wherever that they have you positioned at, and then you would follow the screen instructions about if it's going to be like maybe taking phone calls, of working for the insurance company, or doing that type of practice, and just thinking about, I'm like, exactly that that while you're practicing, that it's basically like a skill to where that whenever you first start a job, and then that we may have that nervousness to where that, well, knowing about how the job's going to go, well, after you graduate from school, that the more likely then you pick up a job, and just thinking about that how well it's going to go, that type of stuff. But in a lot of ways, the way I think about though is like with most jobs is that maybe not all of them, but on your hand, that quite a few of them, that they have it to where that you pay for their personnels, like for their employees to come in during the hour or evening or maybe night time at hourly shift schedules, and basically like a night shift, or if it's an evening shift, if it's second or third shift, that more likely that they would come in and work for about 2 hours, but then on their hand that they would not be really be helping any clients or any customers or anything like that, that they would just be doing practicing. And one of those practicings could be, it's like that they would sit in front of a computer or something like that, sitting at a desk, and then they would be going through paperwork. And maybe if anybody, like maybe not in front of a computer, but let's just say if somebody were so like that if you were to be sitting in front of a copy machine and like, yeah, that's somebody that takes a phone call and somebody you ask to have something, mailed to them, or if it's, have something sent, fax, electronically, that type of stuff. And then knowing about, I'm like, yeah, for the, somebody else there at the office that, more like that manages that too. So it's like the jobs that where you sit in front of a computer or sit in front of a copy machine for about 2 or 3 hours. And sometimes they may say that gets maybe a little bit tiresome, but then on the other hand, I'm like, yep, well, you'll get used to it. But knowing about, I'm like, yeah, a lot of times it's like, yep, you'll get used to it. And sometimes the way I think about the way people may say it too is that, yeah, well, too bad, you're stuck with it. Hey, oh, you don't like it. That's just too bad. Well, you gotta do it. That's your job. That type of stuff. It's like that type of talk. But on the other hand, and knowing that with both ladies and gentlemen, is knowing about, I'm like, it kind of reminds me of for most like insurance companies, to where if they would be taking a phone call, such as an operator or working for an insurance company, and like talk about like in the thank you consoles, how may I help you? Like hey, can I have some assistance? Like sure, ma'am. Please, I'll go ahead and transfer you to the such department or something like that. And if it's going to be between sir and madam, and in a way that they the way that the voice the way that the voice is translated, of course, to from the headset, and then if they have like the Bluetooth devices or anything like that, but so far with technology though, but basically that you have right here is like the wage, statement right here is like for hours. It's like for 5.12 hours, and along with the salary is $10.13 an hour. And then on the other hand, you got right here is about every 3 months. Be about $35,850 or so is like for paid training. That'll be about every 3 months. So altogether, that would be about every month that on average that let's just say if you worked a job and they pay you maybe by a third or maybe a full quarter, from any paid training or something like that, that you earned, and as well as 130,789, and plus the $5.99, and then the 30%, and some of the stuff right here, I'd like to talk about, like I went ahead and do like a chart right here, like I had maybe a few other examples as well, but far as I know, that I'm like with these other examples right here, that I'm like, yeah, that for they may say that yeah, well, mainly that's only for like full time. If you're a full time staff member, full time employee, that more likely that you will qualify for a number of the things listed on the chart. Such as if it's going to be like paid. For pay, any if most of us are like on a job though, that, like for paid training though, that basically this activities talk about paid training, but I'm sure that there's other type of pay salaries that are paid like for like sick days or something like that, time off, but and as well as that if it's going to be maternity, if it's maternity leave or something like that, but on the other hand, to talk about for paid training though, for paid training. That if we will be starting a job, and let's just say if we were to be starting a job, that there's some that may say that I'm like, yeah, whenever you first get started on a job, then they expect you to know everything, and sometimes it seems that way, to where that they show you where your desk is, and then they expect you to go through amounts of papers, and then they expect you to know everything on the screen. But I'm sure that some companies say that they say help you feel more confident about what they do there at the company, at the business, to where that they would train you. But on the other hand, that like if we were to think about the difference between school and then training at a job, that more like that knowing that besides that at this time that you'll be making money for for the work that we show in progress, and something like if the ladies, you would think about the gentlemen. It seems like a lot of times the gentlemen that make a little bit more money than the ladies, and like if it's going to be that with the gals that they were to be, which I am not exactly sure, but like At least that's why I hear sometimes that knowing about, for who gets paid a little bit more, compared to the ladies, from the ladies to the gentlemen, about, for who gets paid a little bit more salary. But let's just say on average that about 10, 13 an hour is about how much, both man and woman that more likely that would get that, for how much they make, for that you'll go in that go into work for about 3 hours, they have 3 hours of training, and then go to a meeting, and then work for about 5 more hours, something like that. So in a lot of ways that knowing about that you're going like if we were going to work, it's like if we go into work right about 12 or so a.m. Something like that it's like for daylight savings time. But if we were to be going into work at a certain time, let's just say that for like first and second and third shift, that more like that the way I went and drew this right here, I think it starts at 3 o'clock. So I think I'll go ahead and just use 3 o'clock as an example right here. And I'll go ahead and use right here for a.m. If anybody wonders, it's like, what does AM necessarily mean? Is that like what's called like an AM, I guess, and I'm thinking, alternative, I think it's alternative morning of the day or something like that. I guess I can go ahead, maybe, it may stand for something else, but, and a lot of times, I'm like, say that a lot of times, around that, alternative morning, but a lot of times around 3 a.m. that you're not like it's like the moon's still out, of course, and it's like knowing about a lot of people are still sleeping around that time, and what do you call that, to where that I'm like maybe you hear the owls going boo 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 boo. But other than that, like you have right here is I'll talk about the hours from like 3 a.m. and then if the work hours were to go from like 3 a.m. to like 1 p.m. in the evening. So that seems like a long day, and I'm like, that is some like, well, for a.m. and p.m. and let's just say that for like until about maybe 12:30, from like from 11:30 a.m. to 12:30. To 12:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. 11:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. That more likely that that could be like, say, your lunch hour, or if it's going to be like a meeting, if it's going to be between break, or if it's going to be a meeting, or if it's going to be any other type of any type of if it's if it's going to be any type of a situation to where that I'm like that at such and such time that you got to report maybe to the office, or you got to take a phone call at a certain time, you got make copies of this or that, that type of stuff. So I'm sure anybody say that I'm like that if we were to go out and get a job and just a little bit of understanding about what all that needs to be done with, like say the chart is to where like 3 a.m. that it's like you got to report to work, so that means that about 1:30 get up, and then have breakfast or something like that, and then get out the door, and then off to work, that type of stuff. So in a lot of ways, that know about anybody who's going to be maybe working about maybe an 8-hour shift altogether, say if it's a total of 8 hours, and thinking about that really, are we really looking forward to working about maybe 8 hours, working 8 hours a day, about maybe 4-5 days a week or something like that. We're looking forward to an 8-hour shift, and especially if we're not used to it. But then on the other hand, if we were to say, I usually look at it as like if you divide that by math, and knowing about that, if anybody say that, I'm like, if we were to look at a clock, right here and thinking about, I'm like, for like how many times for 8 hours is divided into groups, it's like for like knowing about if we would actually calculate that on a clock, it's like if it's counterclockwise, vertical clockwise, it's like how it's set, but basically that for how it's set, that I usually look at it is that you have right here is like for every 5 minutes, for every 5 minutes is like if we were to divide this into like maybe in the thirds or something, like in the fifths. If like you have right here is for 5 minutes, you got 5, 10, 15, and 20. So what could more likely they could be getting done in about maybe 20 minutes, maybe in 15 minutes. That in 15 minutes, that more likely that you could be getting a phone call or two, maybe in about maybe 5 minutes later that you could be maybe in the copy room or maybe in front of the computer, that type of stuff. So, and then you got right there as a time, and then as well as for 1,039. 139,999, and then you have right here, I go ahead and write in here is for plus 20%, and knowing about, I'm like, yeah, if you were to add that up for addition to where that for how much the time paid, if it was like 20% to where that you would get paid training. So I'm thinking that maybe not every job, but there may be some jobs that they may only offer maybe 10% for paid training. So if we think about, Mike, yeah, if anybody were wondering that, I'm like, ask information about that, 20% to 30%. I'm like, well, I'm not asking for the percentage. I'm asking for the amount. I'm like, for a lot of times, it depending on maybe how much we make our salary, that on average, if it's going to be $10.13 an hour, then on average that we would see about maybe an extra $7.50 coming to our checks or something like that. But if we were to work the math though, but I can tell anybody here that knowing about, for what all I know about math and knowing about Mike, yeah, for what we consider like for professional work, is knowing about Mike really that the type of training, for we say we've done some things so many times to where we can't really tell if it's considered professional work or not, because of the fact about Mike, yeah, you done it so many times, and thinking about Mike, this is the way I was trained how to do this, and really that it was hard, it was pretty tricky at the beginning, but then now it seems like I've gotten kind of used to it, to where I'm like, well, it's not really, yeah, it's professional work. So what do we usually call it, where we done something so many times to where it don't really seem very professional? Maybe something like, yeah, that nobody's ever seen it before. And I keep thinking that maybe that's the reason, maybe that's the reason. Maybe because nobody has ever seen it before, and maybe they look at that as maybe a little bit professional. But if it's going to be a paint job or something like that, but or if it's lettering, or but anyway, but you have right here is like you have right here is for employees, like you're for paid on paid training, and then I have right here some examples right here of like some long division tables, and with long division, I'm sure I'm like most of us here when we were in the 5th grade, if we can remember doing this type of stuff, to where you have right here is like the remainder, for the remainder 1, I'm like for the remainder. So in a lot of ways, it's like, yeah, if we were to be working the long division and knowing about, I'm like, yeah, 9 divided by 5, or if it's 9 divided by 10, and then, working this, like, which I'm like, yeah, that, for when the whole purpose of, I guess, why we do it is knowing about, for if it's all about, which, according to what I, learned those while back, those years ago, to where it's basically works by, I can go and use like, 4 right here. You have right here is 4. And it put like a mark right there, and then you put divide that in 2. So let's just say you got there are like these zeros right here that more likely that I can count those as marks, as like point marks, but they used to be altogether 4 until you divide those into groups, and then now it's like you got 2 and 2. So I'm sure most of us, if we figured our times tables is like 2, or say 2 times 2 is like for 4, 2 divided by 4, and knowing about is 2, that type of stuff. If most of us know what I'm talking about for like the basics about long division, that for knowing about Mike, really what's the whole purpose about long division? It's all about really about trying to make the number smaller, or is it trying to make it bigger, or maybe just sound as like the remaining part? But really, that number of times I've done long division, and just thinking about, I'm like, yeah, it's been a while since I've done it. I'm like, yeah, that I can remember I used to be able to solve these math problems within about 2 minutes. Just so I think about, I'm like, yeah, 9 goes into 9, and then 9 goes into 10 and 15 or something like that, and 9 and 9. But then if like look, I would a lot of times look at the times tables and just think about figure out the math. Configures like you got the 5s and along with the 7s along with the 8s, that type of stuff. But I'm thinking though that there may be some times tables on a times chart that may not have maybe you can't divide those that they did. But according to I remember that I was told a while back from math class is that long division, it's like for the division tables, they would be a little bit easier. They would be easier compared to the times tables. And I guess that basically means that what you're basically doing is you're dividing it to where that you're kind of splitting them up, that with these numbers that you're making them just a little bit smaller. I guess they're not really getting smaller, but they're just the groups are getting a little bit smaller to where that you have a total of like if you have like a number of like I can go ahead and use circles right here. Go ahead and use a group of circles. You have circles right here, and then from there, and then if I do like say a zigzag type line right here, zigzag type line right there, and then know what these circles right here to where exactly that that they were a group of 6 circles, and until that they were divided. It's like they were divided in the groups. It's like into 2 groups. So if we were to say like 6 right here, 6 divide that and divide that in parts, you got right there for 2 and 6. But anyway, but knowing about like if I would have done that right, I'm like knowing about like number of math problems, that trying to think about like trying to explain as much as I can to where that I'm like you got right there is the groups, but right there's like for 6 of them, and then divide those into 3. But anyway, but basically that I can remember that whenever I was whenever I was young, that I would be working these math problems right here and just thinking about exactly about the whole matter about that. Like I would learn them, and then after I get used to them, and then it was like to get the idea for how they work, and then I would just within about maybe 5 minutes I would be able to solve about maybe 4 or 5 other math problems. So it was like after you get the idea, after you get used to how to work them, I'm like you'll be cruising. But on the other hand, I'm like that whenever you get stuck, it's like like I'm trying to figure out the math problem. But other than that, like talk about right here is like talk about say for paid training though, is it kind of reminds me of like the story to where if most of us here had the clocks to where it would make the sound of a bird chirping, or like every time whenever the big hand strikes and it comes to the 5 or something like that, it would be like 5 o'clock, ding 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 ding, like ding 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 ding. And then after about whenever 6 o'clock came around, it was like ding 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 ding. Like so all I gave Isaiah like like with the cuckoo clock or something like that. I'm like cuckoo 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 cuckoo. Like what? And then whenever 6 o'clock comes, like cuckoo 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 cuckoo. And then whenever 7 o'clock or maybe 10 o'clock comes, like cuckoo 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 cuckoo. Other than that, like talking about is like for a number of times, it's like the bird would come out and like talk about I'm about to do something with that cuckoo clock. But on the hand, I'm like I thought it was kind of neat though. It's like for how the clock would make the sound to where every time 3 o'clock came and 4 o'clock came and 5 o'clock came, it would make dun 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 type sound, like knowing about it's an hour later and it's going to make the sound tones. But anyway, but talk about right here is talking about, say, for paid training, is knowing about like, yeah, that if anybody were to think about like you have an alarm clock that's like get you to work on time, and just thinking about it is like for like get dressed up on time and get your training in on time, and then enough to earn your paycheck on time. But other than that, like talking about right here, knowing about is like for the man and woman is like if they would be working the documents on like on the computer, and basically that and you say that yep, that the type of training that more likely that they will be managing, especially that with the type of training that that they were to come in, and that type of training is like, well, I've been there to where it seemed like everybody else is all cruising right through the application, but then you get stuck on something, you like, and then maybe papers that they give you, maybe a stack of papers that they want you to go through, and you're like, oh, I'm not looking forward to this. But some advice that they may give you is like, don't feel overwhelmed, just take it one thing at a time. And I'm sure anybody's first day on a job, that more likely they could be is that anybody's first day on a job, that I guess is quite normal, maybe from the first week, that you're gonna be exhausted, you're gonna get always stressed out, that type of stuff. But knowing about, I'm like, something that maybe you look forward to on a job, and some that may say that, I'm like, yeah, maybe besides a paycheck, it's all about maybe understanding and learning, about, exactly about what the company and business does and what they usually do and how they train their employees, and knowing about the whole important reasons about the job. Is that if working for the insurance company, to where for most customers that they enjoy talking to the person, and such as a sir or madam, I'm like a good morning, how may I help you, or something like that, or hey, thank you for calling such and such company, how may I take your call, or something. But if most of us know, I'm like, work for like as an operator, 911 emergency service or anything like that. But on your hand, and knowing about, I'm like, yeah, if it's going to be an insurance company, or maybe if it's tech support or any type of PC related software products, that's possible that they would have it to where there's somebody that would be training. But if anybody were to think of that situation to where that if you were training, and a lot of times with the training process that they say that, I'm like, yeah, that with the training that you're basically practicing. But let's say if there's a time to where you actually take a phone call from an actual customer, and then let's just say that you may have not earned your license yet, you're working at study field, and let's just say if it came to a situation to where that there was somebody that needed assistance, and you knew a little bit about what was required, and then it was like, yeah, that they say that they say that yeah, give that person a pat on the back. But on your hand, knowing about my co-host about, say, for paid training, though, is that for what we can expect about paid training is maybe not everybody's qualified for it. But on your hand, and knowing about the whole purpose about the job, though, is that I'm sure that there are millions of jobs as well as, but the way I think about, though, is like that the important reason about working for a job is that with most of the time that if we were to be thinking about that if it's going to be working on the math and understanding how everything works and that type of stuff, and just thinking about, I'm like, if it's going to be a man or a woman, and knowing about, I'm like, really that if it's going to be like the relationship, and really about how much that you remember, how much that that you're part of the company, that type of stuff. So in a lot of ways that there may be some that may say that yeah, that there may not be a job that's what you call, it's like stress free and headache free or something like that, or something that to where that I'm like a job that really that that there's not like one day to where that you're going to have peace and quiet. But on your hand, if there is a day where there is going to be a little bit of peace and quiet, it just seems like that that there's like a type of bond to with maybe with the company as well, to where that I'm like, yeah, that a few things that you may miss there for a couple of hours as well. So a lot of things about doing something that is like knowing about, I'm like, yeah, we've done it long enough to where that we kind of want to feel confident about the job, to where I'm like, yeah, it's that there are some jobs out there that I'm sure that that are going to be pretty stressful. I guess the best way to handle is to work hard, like I said. But then on the other hand, another suggestion as well is knowing that for to give the job some time to where that other people would be able to get to know you well, and then on the other hand, that really about that whenever you started, that more likely that they may said that I'm like, yeah, you may not be qualified for any type of promotion in the next 3 years, down the road or something, to 3 years in the long run, that more likely you may not be qualified for any kind of promotional certificates or anything like that. But on the other hand, that knowing that like if it's going to be sir or madam, or if it's a man or woman, that knowing about that with any type of promotional that they may say that like after about 6 months to a year that if they want to offer the person a promotion, and I'm like, yeah, after it's most of the time it's at least a year that they may offer a promotion or a raise to somebody or something like that. But if anybody were to say, I'm like, yeah, that after a year that you want something else, and well, what's this something else? Well, I like that. If I can go ahead and let's just say if one the thing that maybe that they would like to also have is knowing about, like, yeah, if they like to maybe take something home with them, that they've been using, for all of, like, yeah, well, you're going to be getting new ones, aren't you? But on the other hand, the way I think about it, though, is like, yeah, anything that we could be using at work as well is knowing about, yeah, you can't take it home with you, because it's like, that's the policies are right. Know it about, like, yeah, that we have it to where the ground rules to where that's the property of the company, that type of stuff. So in a lot of ways, that knowing about, Michael, for both man and woman, is knowing that if they're going to be working a job, is like that they usually say that they respect the rules and rights about the company and business, and anything that new, that more likely that's coming into the office or the building or something like that, that more likely is like talking about is like, yeah, that if somebody's been working there for at least a month, or maybe at least 3 or 4 months, something like that, they're like, well, yeah, I'd like to look into moving changing your positions, or like a promotion or something like that. And but then they walk into their office and be like, yeah, that there's something that they're using there at the office that more likely they would like to maybe take home with them as well. But other than one of those things could be like maybe a pen, electronic pen, or maybe a desktop folder kit or something like that, and a tablet or something like that. I'm like, yeah, that a few things that more likely that we could use at work, that more likely to, like, yeah, you don't mind them taking home with me. I can it's, if you're going to have any training on it, then you have to have training at a certain time. But anyway, knowing about the difference between home working and doing work at the actual office, or maybe at the lab or somewhere. But anyway, but you have right here is talking about, it's like for the paid training, color activity right here, and then your number of details for what I talk about as well. And then think about, like, yeah, for 0, and knowing about for which one of these remaining numbers is more likely going to be equal to 0. It's like if one of these right here, besides the 20%. But the 20%, knowing about, like, yeah, well, I'm sure more likely that's equal to something other than nothing. But find out, I guess, when you work the math. And a lot of times the way I think about it, like with my artwork, every time I'm thinking about maybe if it's bills, if it's going to be student loans, or if it's going to be any other type of bills, that I usually think that, yep, if I were to work a plan to where that I write down how much is owed and how much it needs to be paid, what's the time go to where how I'm going to be able to collect the amount of money, and then just be able to pay it. What's the scheduled arrangement? That's usually how I do it. So, like, say, for any creative art work that I can think of, especially with paid training, that pick up a job and then it's like, yeah, that it's possible that they could pay you a little bit more, for training you on a job, and as well as like our weekly or daily. It's like a periodic with do a paycheck If it's going to be every 2 weeks or something like that, maybe every 10 days or so, grace pay or something. If it's going to be like any type of salary pay or anything like that, but vacation pay, that type of stuff. But talk about right here is to say for the paid training, it's a color activity.